download viruses that way. All right. To another episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich. And I forgot our theme song for this week. Hang on here. Since it's Christmas time, we'll go ahead and play a little jazz.
I saw Santa Claus swinging in the trim-made jack. I got a big wish for Santa, and it's not a new Cadillac. It's better than grandma's cooking. It's better than hot beignets. It's better than a lot of money. Much bigger than a Mardi Gras day. I don't need champagne or caviar. Don't need no ice cold fruit. I don't need no big old barbecue pit. Wait a minute, that's not true. I just had a rap with Santa, and he took us a little stroll. And all I want for Christmas is the Saints in the Super Bowl.
Terrible. Who would want that?
Yeah. Oh, I can think of 28 to 3 reasons why, but we won't go there. There had to have been at least one joke tonight. I mean, I'm sure you're going to say, I can think of 7 to 9 reasons why this thing should be in the Super Bowl, but we know how that goes.
I've never heard of the 20
anyway
before.
It is Falcons Hate Week, and we have our Falcons guest on board. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich. Welcome to Week 14 at Under the Dome. It's a special Thursday night edition of football coming up in 2 days. And let me just say for the record, I hate Thursday night football. I despise it because, here's a league that talks about safety. We're going to suspend a couple guys from the Cincinnati-Pittsburgh game last night for hits. Here we got Gronkowski doing a WWE move on Trey White. Drops an elbow. And, at the same time, we've both seen our injury reports for the Falcons and the Saints. It's a mile long. You've got guys missing practice because, you're trying to recover from 2 very physical games this past weekend. The Falcons against Minnesota, the Saints against Carolina. And you're going to try and play on Thursday night. Your body just cannot recover in time. So I have a feeling this game would be so much better if it was played Sunday night, on NBC, nationally televised, just like a regular scheduled game. And the guys have time to get healthy, and we have the kind of game we should get, because this is really a battle. In the Saints' case, they're battling to win the division. In the Falcons' case, the division is a possibility, but they're really playing for the playoff lives, because if they lose Thursday night, it's going to look really, really hard for the Falcons to get back in the playoff race. With Seattle winning against Philadelphia, with Aaron Rodgers coming back to Green Bay, I mean, it's really going to be a challenge. So we'll talk about all that. First, let's introduce Sean Williams, the co-host here on Under the Dome. How you doing tonight, Sean?
Doing fantastic, man. 9-3. Who could have possibly foreseen that the Saints would be 9-3 and be leading the division?
Kamara, brah. Kamara.
If we go back and we check the records, our season kickoff show, there was an analyst person Saints to win the division. Just one. And I went back and did my research that I would be right. There is only one on that entire panel, all of our present company included, that picked the Saints to win the division. And now, at this point, I do realize that we are being premature. It's not over. At this point right now, number one with a full game and a half lead in the division, and that one person was me. Thank you. All that being said, hey, it's
Right, a lot of humility right there. I'm just telling you from the outset.
hey, Roddy Piper said it best. A long time ago, he was doing an interview, and he said, all the time that I shouldn't, but who better knows the melody?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
Well, I'll be honest with you. Most of us had no idea that Tampa Bay would become the dumpster fire that it's become. You know,
get into
so
that a little
that's
more.
in my defense.
Yeah. Actually, up until like maybe 12 hours prior to that season kick, in all honesty, up until about a day before we did that kickoff show, I had gone on record as picking Tampa Bay to win the division. Then came the hurricane, and as you and I have talked about extensively off the air, there's a lot of baggage that goes with not only surviving the storm, but trying to put together a season following. And that's the reason that I changed my pick. That and diehard belief in all that is holy, that being the black and gold. We want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We want to invite everyone to subscribe to us on iTunes, on YouTube, on our personal channel, Under the Dome. Follow us on Facebook, Under the Dome Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome PO1. We want to thank a few people. I don't think that we ever thank a few of our nearly enough, and that being two primary people. Guys, it sounds kind of cliche for me to say it, but without John Pinto, what we do means nothing. John is the straw that stirs the drink for Under the Dome. That's as simple and as appropriate as I know how to put it. And also, Joel Smith. Joel, I thanks, man. If it weren't for you, this would have been a very, very, very long season for me. I owe you one, brother. Our special guest this week, he's I talk all the time about my guys from Under the Dome. That includes Harrison, that includes the big guy from Buck What You Heard, Big Gene, and it also includes our guest tonight, personal friend of mine that I have to say is a great sport. He's a very, very, very good writer. Presently he's freelance journalist covering the Atlanta Falcons, and great sport. And he's working on being his first. What's the word I'm looking for? This is going to be his first year to kind of be eligible for Father of the Year. How's the little guy doing, Josh?
Good.
Okay.
He's great. Thanks for asking. I didn't know that I was in the running. This is great. I mean,
hey, you're always in the running as long as you got one, brother.
Exactly. Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been a great year and a lot of fun.
I'm going to send you that black and gold onesie, by the way.
That's great. I look forward. He can use that as a diaper. It's great.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Well, how old is he? Or is he born yet? I mean, I hate to ask that because I didn't know.
He's 10 months.
But how old is he? 10 months? Oh,
yeah, he's 10 months. He was born last February. He was born the weekend of the Super Bowl. So it was pretty awesome.
Good.
You named him Drew, right?
No, Drew wasn't playing in that Super Bowl. Did you guys know that? Wrong quarterback. The MVP year was in there.
So you're trying to tell me that you named him Tom?
No, I didn't say cheater. I said
Yeah.
MVP.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
All jokes aside, we want you guys to make welcome very good friend of ours, Josh Schultz. How are you doing tonight, Josh?
Good. Things are going well. It's been, like I was saying earlier, it's been an up and down season for us, a little bit more so than we would have liked, but that is the climb of the mountain that is the NFL, right? It's never easy. And
right.
I think a lot of times people take for granted, this opponent or that opponent, right? I mean, this is a must-win game, right? I mean, I flew down to Atlanta for the Bills game thinking, well, this will probably be one that we win, right? Not so much. So you can't take anything for granted, even when you play in the Browns or the Bills or the Jets, whoever it may be. Every week is a challenge.
Well, in 2010, we found out, what it's like when you've been to the Super Bowl, whether you win or lose. When you've been to the Super Bowl, every team prepares for you like this is going to be their Super Bowl because you become the measuring stick. And that's part of the reason why we struggled as badly as we did in 2010. We went 11-5, went to the playoffs, but lost in Seattle. But Drew Brees had one of his worst years. I think he threw 22 interceptions that year. It was a lot of injuries on the team, a lot of inconsistency. And the team just looked tired. By the time it got to the Seattle playoff game, they really looked worn out. And that is the downside of playing into February. It's you have a hard time because you can just turn that motor right back on again and just go. It's not the same team. You guys have had a little bit of change in the roster, not much, but a little bit. You're not as lucky on the injury front, and you lost your offensive coordinator to the 49ers. So there is a bit of a shift in the team. It becomes like it has to almost be like an entirely new team, but the expectation level is just so high. So talk a little bit about that inconsistency. What do you think is the root cause behind it?
Yeah, it's great. It's funny. I think really when you look at the roster, I could almost argue that, this is a different team, but that this roster is better than last year's, really. When you look at it, you add Dontari Poe on defense, who adds a big run-stopping presence to the middle of your defense. They draft Tack McKinley, who has 5 sacks already. So you have changes like that I think are more positive, really, than anything else. And you return pretty much all of last year's roster except for a fullback. So really, that's not a huge deal. So I was expecting kind of a step forward. But I think really what it is it just takes a very, like you said, it's a measuring stick game for every other team. And it just takes a lot of luck to kind of get there, right? These players are all talented. There is not a big difference between the Falcons and the Browns. I know it looks like it, and there's just not. It's just talent level is completely similar. And there is just not a huge difference between what the first team is and what the 32nd team is. What the coaching is might be a lot different, but what the player talent level is and how they're used is relatively similar. So I think when you take that into account, it's just a challenge every game, like I said. And then you have some of the bad luck stuff, just weird things like drops. Matt Ryan has about 4 or 5 interceptions this year on tipped passes by Julio Jones, by Muhammad, by players who just don't drop passes. And you have weird penalties at bad times. They literally lost a game because of basically a roughing the passer penalty against the Dolphins, where that basically gave them a touchdown at the end of the game. So things like that just didn't happen last year. And then the injuries. The injuries have been a little bit there this year for sure. Freeman missed some time. Trufant missed a game. And guys are just a little bit more banged up. So there's a lot of factors.
Absolutely.
I think Thursday is a must-win game.
Yeah, that was a big difference between 2009 and 2010 for the Saints. They had gotten, I think they were like plus 22 in the turnover, and they had scored 9 defensive touchdowns in 2009. And in 2010, you just were not getting the turnovers like that. You were not. You definitely didn't get the defensive touchdowns. So, exactly. It's so much of having a successful season is just catching lucky breaks like that, where, let's just say Julio Jones tips the ball, but instead of it going to an interception, it tips into Gabriel's hands, and Gabriel takes off and runs for a touchdown. Yeah. That's the kind of things that happens to you in a Super Bowl run. a non-Super Bowl year, those are the kind of plays that just don't happen to you. You just don't get those breaks.
Well, yeah, I think that a lot of people don't realize, the average fan doesn't realize, they see the New Orleans Saints at 9-3, the Cleveland Browns at 0 and how many weeks is it? 12. You see that disparity in the record, and you think that there's that much of a disparity between the players, and it's really not.
Right.
The disparity in this league now is higher than it's ever been. Saying about any given team on any given Sunday has never been as true as it is today. That's the reason that you see a team can go out and 9-1, 10-1 on the season and get manhandled the way that the Eagles did Sunday night in Seattle.
Yeah.
The team that prepares the most and believes in their game plan the most, they're going to be the ones that are successful. I'm not going to slight Atlanta at all. I have fun at Josh's expense a lot between the two of us, but and insincere when I say this. We know, right? I told him the other day. Carolina didn't really make me lose any sleep in terms of this division race that we have going on. Atlanta absolutely scares the hell out of me because a year ago, with basically the same roster that you're using this year, you saw what Atlanta was capable of when they were hitting and when they were on. What they're capable of. And the only variable in that scenario now is Sark and the new OC. That's taken some time to make that adjustment and make that change universal for the Falcons. Thankfully for us, thankfully for our division hopes and all. But Atlanta can be the difference between the Saints. I don't want to say the difference between a successful season and an unsuccessful season because that's not nearly going to be true. I think we have a little wiggle room now that we've swept the Panthers, and I feel I feel very strongly that in the fact that we're going to be able to beat the Buccaneers the next time we play them, the final game of the season. A little leeway to where we don't absolutely have to sweep to get to where we want to be. Although we want to. I'm rambling now.
Yeah, here's the thing. Just to kind of close the door on the whole difference between, the Falcons, the Saints, and say Cleveland. There are, I do agree with you guys. There are no Appalachian states playing in the NFL. There's no homecoming game in the NFL. The difference is a team like Cleveland consistently finds a way to beat themselves and then lose ball games. They have talented players. They just do stupid things at inopportune times that cost them ball games. And, you see that thin razor margin between winning and losing, even going back to the Saints-Redskins game. The Redskins had that game won. There was no way the Saints should have won that game. But they left a crack just wide enough for Drew Brees to kick the door in, make some plays. They do some stupid things like an intentional grounding penalty, and suddenly the Saints have a shot. And they take it, and they win. And that's what winning teams do. Losing teams find ways to lose. So that's really what's going on in the NFL. To me, yes, this is a desperate Falcons team, and they get to play this game at home. So I think we said this off air. I think this game means a lot more to Atlanta because if Atlanta loses this ball game, they're now 2 games behind the Saints. They're a game behind Carolina. They are a game, I think, behind Seattle. And I know the Falcons have the Carolina Panthers as the last game of the season. But do they have another? They have us in 2 weeks. Who do y'all have following the Saints game Thursday night? Who do y'all have in 10 days?
All divisional games. So Saints, Tampa, Saints, Panthers. Yeah,
okay, so it's nothing but divisional game. Okay, all right. So it puts a lot of pressure on the Falcons to at least can't afford to be swept by the Saints for sure.
Right.
Merry Christmas.
Would help. Yeah, it would help a lot for them. But I mean, if they split with the Saints, then that final game of the season becomes, winner take all almost for the playoffs, because the Panthers are playing the Vikings this week. And if the Vikings play the way they played last week against Atlanta, I can very well see Minnesota winning the number 1 seed in the playoffs and having home field advantage throughout. They're just that solid of a team. Their defense is very impressive. We found out in week 1. The Falcons found out last week. They just don't make the mistakes that a team would make to allow you an opportunity to win a ball game. They're going to force you to play a perfect game to beat them. And Atlanta didn't do it last week, which I was kind of surprised because I thought a team that could at least score points in the defense, and they just didn't do it. What do you think happened in that Minnesota game, Josh?
I think they moved the ball really well. Really starting the game early, just moving the ball up and down the field, no problem. But then kind of the issue was penalties. They had 6 penalties in just the first quarter. That was just that took away scoring opportunities right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
And then
absolutely,
you go 1 for 10 on third down. Can't do that, obviously. You're never going to score. And they only got 1 red zone opportunity because they were only 1 for 10 on third down. And a lot of the third downs were 1 for 10 because of the penalties. So all of a sudden, a first down run turns into a 3rd and 15 or a 3rd and 20. And now, you're what do you do? I mean, you're not going to get 3rd and 15 against Minnesota's defense. You've got to keep it 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 consistently, and then you can convert those. So the game just didn't start out right. I mean, the first play of the game, Julio was wide open on a slant. That might have been a touchdown, honestly. There was nobody near him, and he dropped it. And from there, it just seemed like everything. Matt Ryan couldn't connect with any of his receivers throughout the game. His passes were high, too fast, or too low. Just looked pretty much out of sync on offense. And really, I thought Sark did a good job calling the plays. Honestly, he mixed it up well. A lot of different formations, a lot of good play action, but just couldn't execute it all. So just kind of a frustrating game to watch. The defense played extraordinarily well, very impressive, to hold them to 14 points like that. So it's going to be
what would you say is the Falcons' strength? Pass rushing or stopping the run?
Pass rush. That's weird. I've never said
pass
that.
Rush.
Oh my God, that feels good. Their run defense is very.
You jinxed it.
It's going to be interesting on Thursday because you guys can obviously run the ball extremely well with Ingram and Kamara. That'll probably be where you attack most, just because they don't seem to do a good job of, especially as the game goes on, of managing to stop the run. We have small linebackers that just don't fill the gaps quite as well. So you really need to play like kind of a 9th man in the box or an 8th man in the box, really, to help slow down the run game of the opponent. The pass rush has been pretty solid. I can't remember where they are with sack number, but Tack McKinley has 5. Adrian Claiborne obviously had that huge game where he had 6. He's got 8 total. Beasley has. So
who is that against?
I really blame the golden redhead boy for that. That was just horrible coaching.
Yeah, don't bother giving him help.
Yeah, at some point you're going to put a tight end or an extra tackle on that side just to keep the guy off of you. You would think around sack 4 he would have done that, but that's the Cowboys for you.
At sack 5, you line up center, tackle, tight end, running back, and you have them roll out to that side. Come on. That was such a horrible coaching job. But again, stupid teams find ways to lose, and Dallas is a stupid team. So, I'm going to get a medal on this.
Oh, well, they are a stupid team. They have been a stupid team since Jerry Jones owned them. The only smart move he ever did was hire Jimmy Johnson. From that point on,
Hey. Barry Switzer.
no. Barry Switzer. I mean, I think
Don't
J.D. Roberts and Marion Campbell could have coached that team to a Super Bowl in '94. That team was loaded. So,
Newt Rockne coached that team to the World Championship.
That was just that's the Cowboys. So I can hate on the Cowboys all day long, even just as much as I can hate on the Falcons. But and I was going to say that's why I asked that question about
Josh looked relieved that we were actually talking about the Cowboys and leaving them alone.
Well, everybody can hate on the Cowboys. I mean, that's an easy team to hate on. The bandwagon fan central. But here's
when the Falcons and the Cowboys played, it was almost the same result as when the Patriots played in the Super Bowl. It was like, who do you want to win? I don't want there to be survivors.
I was so happy Green Bay beat Dallas in the playoffs last year because that was going to be my personal hell. An NFC Championship game involving the Cowboys and the Falcons. That would have been horrible. Horrible. There is no way I could have stomached that. The Patriots were bad enough they had to cheer for those guys. But the Cowboys in the play, oh man, because the fans are so obnoxious. They wouldn't know who Don Meredith is if you pointed him out in the lineup. They're such bandwagoners. I don't even start on these clowns. Anyway,
hey, we got somebody on the live text that says Dallas Cowboy fans still celebrate Super Bowls that wasn't even in the same millennium.
They celebrate watching their old Super Bowl games on. They watch old Super Bowl games on their Betamax. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's the CD. Was the CD even invented yet?
I'm not gonna hate on anybody that's won a world championship, although I will hate on teams that haven't.
Anyway, going back to the thing. The reason why I asked about that is because that's what I've seen. I think Quinn is building a Falcons team very much like the Seattle team, but he has undersized players, especially at the linebacker position, which make them susceptible to the run. So I would think you're probably going to get a more heavy dose of Mark Ingram Thursday night than Alvin Kamara, because believe it or not, this is not a good game for Kamara.
Sure.
Because this team is built on speed. They're built on stretching it out, making those plays stretch out towards the sideline where they can gang tackle and make the hits. If you go right at them, if you run right at Vic Beasley, you run right up the middle on them. I think that's where the Falcons have trouble because Deion Jones is undersized linebacker. They just have a hard time squaring up and getting to you. They can hit. I'm not saying they're weak or anything like that. I'm just saying they are built for a lot of speed, and it's a compliment to that offense because that offense is designed to run up the score real quick and make you throw the ball to play catch up, and that plays right in that defense's hands. So it's a logical way of building a team. The team, if New Orleans is coming in the way I think they're coming in running. They're going to pound it on you. It's going to be a lot of power football. It's going to be something that's going to make Vince Lombardi, Bill Parcells, and Mike Ditka smile because it's that old-fashioned trap, counter tray, inside running game that you're going to see a lot of on Thursday night.
Yeah, I'd expect the same. And I said that to Sean earlier that, the running game is going to be a problem for sure. And I think the Falcons are going to have to score some points. And obviously, you always want to score points to win, clearly. But like I said, I don't ever remember a Falcons-New Orleans game that was a defensive battle. I just can't.
No.
I mean, they're always kind of high scoring in the high 20s or 30s, just because it's so back and forth. But there's never really a team that pulls away. They're always pretty evenly matched. So we're going to have to score certainly more than 9 points for sure. So you really want to be aggressive. And what Sark's been doing a good job of, I think, is calling pass plays on first down. That's kind of a little bit like Shanahan did last year to open up some of the offense instead of, just running it on first down and then working in the pass, because we just have such a solid running game that the defense has to take account of.
I saw last year when you played us, the Falcons really stretched the Saints horizontally as well as vertically. A lot of throwback across the field kind of plays, a lot of we'll bootleg to the right and then we'll pitch it out to the left kind of looks where they were challenging the Saints' speed. Even though the speed has gotten better, I saw some of that against Minnesota too. I still expect the Falcons to try and challenge the Saints horizontally, spread that defense out so they can't pack it in inside to stop those running backs. I don't know if Marshawn Lattimore is going to play or not. I wish he would, because I just want to see him matched up against Julio Jones. That's the best. I think Julio Jones is the best receiver in the NFL, and that's not even – I don't think it's even arguable. As much as I love my boy Mike Thomas, he is not yet at Julio Jones's level, where Julio Jones is just that dynamic. That explosive. You have to control Julio Jones. I much rather let Sununu or Gabriel try and beat us. What?
Sununu.
Butchered Sununu. Yeah. Sanu. Sununu. Anyway, who's your mama? Who's your mama? We'll just leave it at that. Anyway, I much rather either of those.
The bottom of the screen.
Pronunciation guide? Yeah, there we go. Anyway, I don't want Julio Jones to go off on us like he did against Carolina last year, like he did earlier in the season where he had 300 yards receiving. That happens. It's not a good game for the Saints. It's much better to let Lattimore deal with Jones and let Crawley deal with Sanu, and PJ Williams deal with Gabriel, and then even let Hooper try and beat us. Just that would be a much better kind of game.
Not for me.
I know. Hey, the Saints always have trouble with tight ends. We'll make everybody like an all-pro. It's one of those things where, I for the life of me, I think they've gotten better, but for the last 3 or 4 years, I think the Saints were actually shocked that a tight end can actually go out for patterns and receive passes, which just always amazing to me that, we have these great tight ends in the past for the Saints, and they don't know how to cover one on defense at all. So, Sean, you have anything to add?
Well, Josh, let me ask you this. You and I have discussed several times off the air, and if you go back to our conversations way during the summer and spring and stuff, I told you that I felt like you guys might take a step back because of the change in your OC position. With Shanahan leaving and Sark coming in. Say that now, 13 weeks into the season, that the Falcons are beginning to find that stability with your offensive coordinator that maybe wasn't there in the beginning of the season?
Yeah, I think so. I think the last few weeks prior to the Minnesota game, things are really starting to click, and I almost said to myself for a second, wow, this looks like last year, where just the team finally, things started to go your way a little bit. The play calls seem to be going well. You're making the right play call at the right time. It felt like Kyle Shanahan couldn't call the wrong play last year in the second half of the season. It was unbelievable. And it kind of started to feel really good. Like everything was moving really well on offense. Like I said, they were using the pass to open up the run. And I think that does a lot for our offense with the way that it's built, because the defense has to account for the running backs so much that it just opens up a lot of the play action and the play action. Yeah, I think so. I think it started to come together until the Minnesota game. And even in that game against a really good defense, they moved the ball really well. But again, you can't have penalties, and you have to do better on third downs. And I don't think that was a play calling issue. I think it was just an issue of getting yourself into bad third downs. So hopefully we can avoid that against New Orleans and not kind of step on our own foot with thumb holding penalties and things like that to really set our offense back. We had a couple of big games. I think Freeman had a 25-yard run that was wiped out by a holding penalty. Things like that you just can't have, especially against a very good defense. And your defense has been very much improved. So maybe not on the level of Minnesota, but certainly a defense that we can't just beat ourselves on and try and just put ourselves in 3rd and 15s and still be able to convert them. Last year's Saints defense, certainly 3rd and 25. That's okay. We'll make that.
That's for sure. That's for
Take
sure.
it, shots. You mentioned Freeman. We've been talking about Jones, and I know as far as Trufant and the offensive lineman as well. Can you give us kind of an idea of where things stand from an injury standpoint with you guys coming into this game Sunday?
Yeah, so Trufant will be active for the game Thursday. He's out of the concussion protocol, so that helps. Certainly. I think they really missed him against Minnesota. Minnesota had a couple of pass plays at the end of the game against our third string quarterback, Bloody Ray Wilson. It was really a kind of a dagger to our defense. So Trufant will be in. That'll help. Andy Levitre, starting left guard, will be out. I guess. Levitre. Yeah, he partially tore his tricep, so he's out for 3 weeks. So we're not using him again for most of the regular season. So Ben Garland, who was the backup center, backup right guard, will slide over to left, and he will play left guard. So definitely weak, kind of up the middle in that sense, because we have a first-year starter at right guard, and also Garland only has limited playing time as well, and more so has more playing time on the defense. He was a defensive tackle last year, so kind of going to be a bit of a struggle. Alex Mack is going to definitely have to get those guys in order, and thankfully he's the best center in the league, because otherwise the guards would be having a very hard time. So Trufant and Levitre out. The interesting thing that I'm waiting to see is, will Brian Poole play? He missed the Minnesota game as our nickel back, and he's a very important part of our defense because we play so many nickel sets. Again, relying on that speed, and he's just a really good open field tackler who can help wrap up guys like Kamara and some of your receivers like Ted Ginn and stuff like that. They're trying to get the ball to in space. So going to be hopefully have him, I hope, but I haven't heard anything yet. He had a back injury and he didn't play on Sunday. So if we don't have him, then we're probably in a situation where we have to move our free safety down to nickel again. And put our backup free safety in there. So Ricardo Allen will probably move to nickel again, and we'll start DeMonte Casey at free safety.
What about you? Have both your running backs healthy? Both Freeman and I just drew a blank on the other guy's name.
Campbell.
Coleman.
What is it? Coleman. Telvin Coleman. Thank you.
Coleman.
Yeah.
Coleman. That's what I said.
Healthy.
Yeah.
Tevin Campbell was one of the new addition, I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, Coleman's healthy. He's been all year. He's been having a really good year. And Freeman's back. He had that pretty bad. He actually had 2 concussions this year, which is why they arrested him for so many games. And he played last week and looks pretty good. So it's always good to have him out there. It just really brings a different kind of physicality to our running game.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because I expect, unfortunately, have Chris Collinsworth doing this game along with the very good Mike Tirico, who I missed terribly on Monday Night Football. But I think you're going to hear a lot about the running back comparisons. Coleman and Freeman being compared to Kamara and Ingram a lot, with that dynamic duo, one power, one speed kind of back. So you can hear a lot of that. And I expect Atlanta to try and run the ball a lot too, believe it or not. I think Atlanta's going to – they're still going to attack. They're still going to throw the ball. But I think they're going to want to control the clock and keep Drew Brees and that offense on the sideline. I think that'll be more of their style. They're not going to want to try and overwhelm the Saints defense with a lot of points early, and then let the defense just kind of pass rush Drew Brees out of the stadium. Because I think if they try that kind of formula, number one, I don't think they're going to be able to score enough points early enough. But number two, I think that actually plays into the Saints' scheme right now of running the ball and controlling the clock and wearing their defense out. So that's just how I see this game. Believe it or not, I see it kind of a low-scoring game. And I say low-scoring in comparison to traditional Saints-Falcons games, but a low-scoring affair, a 27-24 kind of game, where you're going to see both teams trying to control the clock and manage, keep the other team's offense off the field with a lot of long drives. Do you feel that way, Josh? Or do you see it more of a Madden-esque kind of video game, kind of throw the ball over the field and we'll run some, but we're going to try and score a lot of points?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think, like I said, I'm always having a hard time saying it would be a lower scoring game for a Falcons Saints game, but I think it can happen. I think the defenses are much improved. Two pretty young defenses that are really starting to come into their own. I think your defense is a little better than ours at this point, but I think both defenses are pretty solid. So I could see that where it's a little bit more low scoring than some of the past years where you're in the 30s and 40s. But I think the Falcons are going to have to score. Certainly, I'd like to see 30. It's going to be hard to get there. But a 27-24, I think we can do that. With this being a home game and really a must-win game, I have to hope and think that we're going to win this one, even if it's at the cost of losing the next one. Just because, really, if you can win this week, you're still in the fight, and we can handle the.
Yeah.
I don't think that we're going to really make a run for the division at this point, realistically, because we'd have to win every game from this point on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be a challenge to do. So if we can just take this game, I would be happy with the split with New Orleans, and then we can fight for that wild card spot.
Yeah, I as much as if this was a Sunday night game or a Sunday afternoon game, I probably feel a little more confident about Atlanta. But it being a Thursday night, and us playing you guys again in 2 weeks, I think that this is probably a game that the Saints can kind of, I hate saying, but can afford to give away. I don't mean that they're not going to play and try and win stuff like that, but they can afford to lose because you're going to be playing the Falcons again in 2 weeks. And you do have the Jets and Tampa sandwich in between there. So, those are two games that you're probably going to win. The Jets are at home. Tampa, by the time you play Tampa at the end of the season, after you guys beat them, after whoever plays them in week 16 beats them, the coach is fired, GM is dead man walking. The players are going to be halfway, they're going to be having their stuff packed in the locker room. At halftime, they'd be loaded in their car. It's that kind. It's going to be that kind of game. They're going to be talking about next year, all that stuff. I think the Packers pretty much sealed that team's fate last week in overtime, and it's just so that's why I think between the Falcons this week and then in 2 weeks in New Orleans, those are the games that are really going to, determine the season for us and for you guys. So I want us to win. I'm hoping we win, but I'm not confident we win because it's a Thursday night on the road. So yeah, that's just how I feel. I'm probably gonna be horribly wrong, or I'm gonna get blasted on Twitter or blasted, on Under the Dome Facebook page because I know Sean's going to take the Saints. I already know this already.
Well, I look at it this way, and I've told several people this, with us sweeping so far in division, Tampa, we've swept Carolina. That gives us a 3-0 all that we, for the most part, all we have to do is beat Tampa, which is a virtually dead man walking, dysfunctional organization at this point, and get a split with Atlanta, theoretically win the division. That being said, I don't look people this week, and I've gotten some blowback on it. I don't look at Atlanta as being a game here, go play the Jets, another game here, nearly so much as it being 8 quarters in 17 days. That, I mean, it's not so much winning. We're not in a position where we have to sweep Atlanta to win the division anymore. We can afford to split with Atlanta and still win the division. Now, all that being said, I realize the urgency of needing to win out to get a higher seeding, and on top of that, you've got to have help from this one and that one and there, over here and over there. This one's got to lose. That one's got to buy into all of that. The only thing I'm concerned with right now is we have to line up with the Atlanta Falcons, and we have to blow their doors off. And then in about 10 days after that, we have to line up against the New York Jets, and we've got to beat them. And then we've got to line up with the Atlanta Falcons again, and we have to beat them. By all of that, I mean, at a time, one day at a time, one moment at a time. Worrying about the number 2 seed, none of that means anything right now. The only thing that means anything is the next opponent that you have. And if you think in any way contrary to that, you're basically defeating the purpose. You have to win what's in front of you and move on to what's beyond that. You can't play what's beyond that and deal with what's in front of you. If you do, you're going to lose what's in front of you, and then whatever is beyond you falls where it does.
I understand what you're saying, Sean. And I guess, and I said this at the beginning of the season, 5-1 record in the division gives you the division title. No team has ever swept this division. We're all too good, too talented, even Tampa Bay. Way too good and too talented to see someone go 6-0 in the division. It's just not going to happen. So, yeah, we were lucky. We've been lucky and good to sweep Carolina. We're in a good position to sweep Tampa Bay. So we split with the Falcons. It's not the end of the world, and it gives us a good chance at winning the division. But the only reason why I'm saying looking ahead is you do have to play this team again in 2 weeks. It's not that I'm preparing to play them again in 2 weeks, but I am. This game means more to Atlanta than it does to us at this moment.
I can agree with that.
But I promise you, in the Superdome, in 17 days or so, it's going to be on. It's going to be the rumble in the jungle. It's going to be everything that the Thriller in Manila, every boxing analogy you can come up with. It'll be on because Atlanta will still be fighting for the playoff lives, and the Saints will be trying to wrap a division title right then and there, which they should be able to.
I completely agree with that.
So, but play this game first, and it's a Thursday night, and I hate it, because you don't get a true measurement. And that's the other reason why I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, is just because teams don't look very much in sync on Thursday night. It's obvious they haven't had enough practices. It's obvious they haven't had enough rest. Slow out there compared to how they look on Sunday. And I think that's why this is going to be a much more game than what we would expect to see out of a Falcons-Saints game. I got watching Thursday Night Football. Y'all, what color jersey are y'all wearing? I hate this is a trivial question, but we got to wear that color rush crap. So we're wearing this all white thing again. You know, the 75 pants and the 19. We look like the 1975 team.
We look like Power Rangers.
We're the white Power Ranger. Is Atlanta going to be in all red, or are they going to be in all black?
Yeah, we're the red Power Rangers.
I don't even know what that color rush is. Okay, so y'all the red Power Rangers. Great. Oh, this is going to look beautiful on my TV. I'll tell you what.
First time they're wearing the all reds. So
man.
So for colorblind people, they're just going to gray. Welcome to the 1950s. It's a black and white game. All we need is this game to be at Boise State's field. You know,
that would look great.
So
red
Boise. Sorry, I said Boise.
Boise. You know, it would be very patriotic.
The Smurf turf.
Yep, that's it. So, okay, that's what I really need to know. That's what everybody really needs to know. If it was going to be all red or all black, out there, wonderful. Anyway, Josh, how can people follow you?
On Twitter right now, it's at Draft Blackboard. I'm a little bit more inactive right now for the time being, but usually around draft season, I get a little more involved. So obviously, got a lot going on. But certainly. Yeah,
like a new baby or something around there. What the hell?
I know. I should really step.
Hey, we didn't give you the day off. We just.
Hey, I saw the Doberman, the Dalmatian back there a couple of times. Focus that out. I've got one of those too. I've got a black lab. She's a little crazy. We call her meth lab. She's a little crazy. So,
101 labs.
Yeah.
Yeah, better than three. You know, so I don't know.
I got to hand it to you, brother. You brought it tonight. Thank you so much for being on. Thank you for wearing Metallica, where I didn't have to sit here and stare at the
always, you know,
on your chest. I tried not to look at your head so that I didn't get that image, but as always, Josh. All jokes aside, thank you so much for being a part of our show. You're one of the family here. You always have been from day one, and you always will be. And hopefully in 17, 18, it's after 7 p.m., so I got to get out the fingers and toes for this. In 19 days.
On Christmas Eve.
You're going to join us again. Spot, but it's more effective that way. You want to come back and join us for Falcons Hate Week 2?
Yeah, we can certainly try. We'll have to put it on the schedule and see what's going on for sure. I know as it gets closer to Christmas, things get a little more crazy. So we'll,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, tell your wife I said please.
That's what matters. Not really. Let me say this, though.
Absolutely.
I'll take a shot. I want to take a shot at the Buccaneers real quick. So Julio Jones, 203 yards, right, against Tampa.
This isn't something I'm going to have to make excuses for later, is it?
No, it'll be okay, I think.
No, David will probably
because I said before this year that Mike Smith was just not a good coach, not a good defensive coach. You coached Julio Jones how many years in Atlanta? How many? And you're just going to let him?
Yeah.
Let's let him run all over the place against their defense. I cannot believe that he still has. I just can't.
Well, what can you expect? They got 2 Falcons coaches on that staff. You got Mike Smith and Dirk Cutter. And yeah, once you have those 2 guys, you're not going to win.
That's right.
I mean,
And we can never have Falcons people on anymore now.
No, you're not Falcons. We can't have
Buccaneers.
David would be fine. I don't know about Buck what you heard, but
he probably agrees with me.
Yeah, David.
Just terrible.
Absolutely, he agrees. He's like, oh yeah.
You cannot sit and cover 2 in the NFL anymore. You just can't sit back and cover 2 and hope that the offense isn't going to score points. It just doesn't work that way. It's just the offense is too creative, and there's too much motion and too many good players. You can't.
Right.
Well, I'm going to be I'm going to be totally honest with you, Josh. Sitting back in the catbird seat from New Orleans Saints perspective, we're done with Carolina. We have nothing to fear from them anymore. Even in the outside realm of playoff implications, I really and truly I can't see our paths crossing anymore. The only team that gives me cause for pause, if you want to call it that, is the Atlanta Falcons. And much like last year, offense is going to do what offense is going to do. Some games you're going to be batting 1,000. Some games you're not so much. What's going to basically dictate your success in terms of the scoreboard is going to be how your defense plays in the big game situations. And Atlanta's defense is for real, and I'll give you all props for that.
Hey, Sean, we're not too.
All that.
I would say we're not totally done with Carolina. I have you know, if Carolina makes the playoffs as a 5th seed, Atlanta makes the 6th seed. Okay, and the Saints end up the 4th seed.
Is that even legal?
Yeah, it's legal. We could very, very well meet Carolina again in the dome.
Division?
Oh, sure. You know, absolutely. You've had that before.
Does that mean Eli doesn't get to play in the playoffs?
No, Eli does not get to play in the playoffs. No.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. That was tasteless and uncalled for, and I hate myself for it. But yeah,
that's why the coach got fired. His key.
No, coach got fired because he was stupid.
You know, you could have Atlanta go to LA to play the Rams, and we could end up hosting Carolina for the.
That would be something.
So it doesn't bother me. Carolina thinks they beat themselves, that we didn't do anything to them, but we're laid out for it again. How do you beat Carolina? Make Cam Newton beat you throwing the ball.
That's it.
Yep.
Those receivers.
To a large extent, the Carolina Panthers are a dysfunctional
as a quarterback
organization. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I mean, if fire then it starts. But
your camera froze. The Carolina Panthers, in a lot of ways, are a very dysfunctional organization as of this moment. I have no faith that they're going to be able to pull it together enough to make a playoff run. And I hate to say that for the sake of my friends like Joey, who was on with us last week, Tony, who I desperately need to be my buddy for in terms of putting on our show. He sent me the link today and said, "Hey, jerks, here's your link."
They know. I mean, they honestly know the problems that Carolina has, and you know they may disagree with me about Cam, but the lack of offensive weapons and Mike Shula as their offensive coordinator, those are two big problems they have in that team.
I don't even, to be honest with you, I'm sorry to interrupt. To be honest with you, I don't even think that it's lack of offensive weapons. You've got Cam Newton. You've got McCaffrey. You've got Olsen. You've got Funches. You've got weapons. It's okay.
Who's going to stretch the field?
You don't have.
Who can stretch that field?
You don't have Drew.
Who puts the field?
You don't have Drew Brees playing quarterback, but you have every bit of the weapon in the backfield in Christian McCaffrey that the New Orleans Saints have in Alvin Kamara.
Right, but who puts the fear of God? All you have
to do is use him in the right way, and he will help your organization. And you're not going to do that with Cam Newton running up the middle for whatever here, whatever there. Cam Newton is not a running back. You cannot use him as such and have him pulling up every 2-3 weeks in press conferences talking about how he's getting hit dirty because he ran up the middle. Cam Newton is not a running back.
Thank you.
Don't use him as a running back.
I agree 100%.
Right.
I agree. It's been
Well,
it is.
I don't mean to be critical of another organization that I don't spend every waking moment listening, learning, studying. But at the same time, I see what I see. Cam Newton is a quarterback. You better use him as a quarterback. You better preserve his longevity as a quarterback, or else you're going to be drafting another quarterback in the very near future.
That's
if you
why
are a running back,
yeah.
use Christian McCaffrey, use Jonathan Stewart, use the kid that you traded to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Well,
use.
Well, and that's the thing. The league, if you watch, and I'm sure Josh can agree with this, you watch NFL Network, you watch ESPN, you watch any of these pregame shows, they're all in love with the idea of we're going to bury the drop back passer quarterback, and we're going to bring in this new dynamic quarterback who can run and pass. That works for a year. What happens is defensive coordinators, and you can attest to this with Michael Vick, defensive coordinators start studying what he likes to do. We learned quickly that Michael Vick hated to roll out to his left, roll out to his right, where he could kind of fling it out, left-handed like that. But when he had to roll out to the same side of his throwing arm, so what would happen on the right side to make him go to his left? Yep. Kind of things that defensive coordinators learn about a guy. They learn what Cam Newton likes and doesn't like. And you saw in the Super Bowl when Carolina played Denver, he didn't like getting a lot of pressure in his face. He did not like getting those late second hit, those last second hits just as he released the ball, because then he started staring down the rush or tucking it in and trying to run instead of letting his playmakers make plays. So that's what happens to running quarterbacks. Fran Tarkenton, Steve Young, those guys learn to be better passers than runners, and that's how they passed into the late 30s.
And I'll take it a step further. You saw in the game Sunday against us, if there was any, what was the score at the end of the third quarter? It was like 31 to
14.
Okay. If there was any saving grace whatsoever for the Carolina Panthers, it was going to be on Cam Newton breaking contain and picking up the scramble yardage.
You saw what the Saints. You saw how the Saints played him.
How many times did you see Cam even try to scramble?
Well, no, because
I counted 3. The entire game, I saw Cam carry the ball. Not there's nobody open, I'm going to get what I can get. I'm talking about a organized,
deliberate running play. Yeah.
I counted 3. Cam didn't want to run the ball against the New Orleans Saints.
Well, here's the thing. Did you see how the Saints defensive line was playing Cam? And this is something that Atlanta can learn when they play Carolina at the end of the season. They kept Cam in the pocket. They didn't necessarily rush him unless it was designed blitz. They played contain, where they stayed in their lanes. Wherever Cam was going to go and run, there was a Saints player waiting for him. They did not go upfield. They kept him in the pocket, and he looked like he had hours of pass protection time, but it was because the Saints defense just stood their ground and watched him. And the minute he tried to run anywhere, they closed in on him quickly. And you saw that also with Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey get that ball, and the defense closed in on him quickly. So he had no cutback lane. The only reason why he scored a touchdown, Klein made a bad to cover the tight end instead of staying with run
the
CMC.
Most relieved that I was in that entire game was it was either a 3rd and long or a 4th and long that they went for it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the play, Jonathan Stewart was being helped off of the field limping. Jonathan Stewart has been a Saints killer for years and years and years. and
Yeah.
years. I don't.
It's what we said, and I know we're keeping Josh, and he's like, I don't give a damn about any of this crap. But I mean, it's like what I told Joey last week. I said, listen, this is the kind of game where you want to make Cam beat you with his arm, and that's exactly the kind of game they played, and that's why we won the way we did. I mean, granted, the 2 touchdowns they got after the first one really would just cut. One was at garbage time, and one was a blown coverage. We really dominated that game from beginning to end. It was the things that Joey said he did not want to see happen there and made people look stupid. Ingram got the big run, 72 yards. We controlled the line of scrimmage most of the game. I think you'll see not necessarily the same kind of game plan because obviously Matt Ryan's a far better passer than Cam Newton is.
Absolutely.
And this is the other thing I was saying about the lack of weapons, at least in the passing game for Carolina. Julio Jones puts the fear of God into every secondary. Every time he runs out there, you have to be aware of where he is. Devin Funchess does not put the fear of God in anybody.
No.
Yes, Greg Olsen can bother you. Greg Olsen can make plays. Greg Olsen is a lot like Rob Gronkowski as far as his effectiveness in the offense.
Without the forearm.
Yeah. Without the WWE move, yeah. But you don't have that vertical threat to make Cam an effective quarterback. That limits Carolina's effectiveness. They have to play almost perfect football, and they're going to beat you up with their physical defense if you just pound on you. So a team, that's why Julio had like 500 yards receiving last year against that secondary, because that secondary just could not stop anybody. And I really didn't see them be able to do much against the Saints either. So that's going to be a heck of a game, that final game of the season.
Yeah, that's going to be big for us. And I think, like you said, going back to Cam and the running thing, it is frustrating as a fan of another team, just because he does complain so much. And really, I mean, he runs head first into the end all the time, diving. And the thing is, you take that many hits throughout the game, and it really wears him down. It really affects his ability to pass, what limited ability he has. And then again, the mental decisions become a little bit slower because he's so worn out. You can't take those kind of big hits throughout the game and then expect to be making precise passes in the fourth quarter when you need them. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. When they drafted Christian McCaffrey, I thought they kind of figured it out. We're going to get rid of this ball quickly and get it into the hands of playmakers. But
Falcons said the same
thing. They haven't figured it out yet.
Right. Yeah, the Falcons went and got Peerless Price, if you guys remember, way back when, from the Buffalo Bills. It was this whole thing, right? Same thing.
Yeah.
We're going to get him these weapons. We're going to throw the ball more.
Yep.
Michael Vick's not going to run. He's not going to take these hits. That's what they do. They can't do anything else. They're not great passers. They run the ball, and so that's what they're going to do. So you're going to live and die by it, and mostly you're going to die by it. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the kind of game that can win in college football, because you're one of, and this goes back to the thing that we started the show with, you're one of, let's just say if this is Alabama and Clemson, you're one of maybe 7 to 10 guys who are elite athletes between the two teams. When you play at the NFL level, you're one of 22 elite athletes out there on the field. So, you can't just run away from everybody. You can't just be the big man, the big fish in the little pond, just blowing people away with your incredible athleticism, because they're all athletes out there. They're all elite athletes. And
that goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of the show. The parity in this league is 10 times now what it was 5 years ago.
Yeah. It's designed that way between free agency. Draft is done. It's designed, absolutely. Encourage that parity.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I think that is fantastic for the league. The worst thing in my mind that can be for the league, although for individual fan bases like you go back to the 90s with the Dallas Cowboys and the Buffalo Bills. You've got Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl. They're the same two teams, the same three or
Look at
four
the AFC
teams.
now.
Yeah.
Look at the AFC now.
Absolutely. The only team that you got that is constantly in contention for the AFC crown is the New England Patriots. Every once in a while, you'll have a Denver Broncos team that has a strong defense and a decrepit old quarterback that they have to carry along. I digress.
Well, I promise you, the Super Bowl this year. I was going to say, I promise you, the NFC Championship game will feature two better teams than what you're going to see in the Super Bowl this February, because the AFC is just that weak.
Yeah, it is.
You've got better teams between Philadelphia, the Rams, the Saints, and the Vikings. You've got those four teams are better than almost every team in the AFC. And we haven't even included the possible wild card teams like Carolina, Atlanta, even Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, to Seattle. Those teams are so much better than the dregs that play in the AFC that are picking in the top 10 every year in the draft. And you know who they are: the Jets, the Browns, the Chargers, the Bills, just the Dolphins, the Bengals. It's always the same. The Texans. Now the Jaguars are finally good, but I mean, the Jaguars were in there forever. So
you look at the AFC versus the NFC. A team that started out 0-4 in the NFC is basically made their bed that they're going to have to lie in. A team that started out 0-4 in the AFC, case in point, the San Diego Chargers, they're tied for the lead in their division right now.
Well, Kansas City's meltdown. Kansas City was most of September, and they're now 6-6, I think. And they lost 5 in a row.
6-6.
They're terrible, and I would have had Kansas City in September. I'd have had Kansas City in the Super Bowl this year, but it's not going to happen.
With an overwhelming record, too.
And remember, too, that certain teams get hot at the wrong time, right? So look at the Eagles now. This is a perfect example.
Absolutely.
This to Sean. They're great. They had a great September and October. Congratulations, you win nothing.
Mm-hmm.
When you are that hot that early, you kind of wear yourself out, you wear yourself down, it catches up to you, teams adjust to you, and it's just when it comes playoff time, you lose. So it's just the Eagles are a team to me that are going to get knocked out in the first game they play. That's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong, but that is a team.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Josh. Let me ask you guys something that I've seen overwhelmingly on social media over the past 24, 48 hours, whatever. The Philadelphia Eagles are steamrolling people, win after win after win after win. I think it was like 8 wins in a row. And all of a sudden, they play a team with a above 500 record and get skull drugged.
Yeah.
Is Philadelphia the team that everyone thinks that they are? Media perception, so to speak? Or are they a team that is being exposed as being vulnerable now?
I think that they're a team like the Rams right now. Although the Rams play better than Philadelphia, I think they're both young teams with young quarterbacks that when they enter an atmosphere like you saw in Seattle in a playoff game, that is when they're going to make mistakes.
Yep.
Because when things aren't going perfectly for them, when they're not being able to just roll people because the offense, just the plays are happening, the defense is making turnovers and things like that, I think that's when the inexperience is going to show up. That's not to say they're not any good. I think they clearly are good. You don't win that many games in the NFL without being talented and good. But I think playoff time, it's a different level of intensity, and I don't know if they can reach that level of intensity. I think that's when the experienced teams tend to play better. And that's why I think the Giants. I won. We talked about Eli earlier. Both Super Bowls. The Giants got hot in December and January, not in October. October looked like they were out of the playoffs.
Sure.
So that's I think that's the difference. I really do, and I think they're both a team. The Rams and the Eagles both are teams that are going to have in the playoffs. Whether they lose or not, I don't know. Josh, do you feel the same?
I do, and I agree. I mean, they're young teams. They got to kind of go in there and learn a lesson and get that experience first. I mean, yeah, young teams can kind of make some of those runs, but rarely do you see like rookie quarterbacks or first-year starters that are kind of getting their first reps or their second year. Do they really make that run deep? Just because it takes a lot of time and experience to get used to the atmosphere and to build that chemistry with your team. It took Matt Ryan forever. Everybody made fun of him, right? He's 1-4 and he can't win in the playoff. And then last year, all of a sudden, he can. So it's just it's a matter of experience of been there, done that type of thing. But I don't think that those are two. I think the Rams are better than the Eagles because I think their defense is better. But I think both of them will be teams that I wouldn't mind playing in the playoffs. I'm not going to necessarily fear them and say, well, this is definitely a game where we lose.
Hey, we lost to the Rams because just like you guys, the Vikings, we beat ourselves.
Yeah.
Mistakes. Yep. A lot of penalties that really cost us that game. From Minnesota, that kind of atmosphere for that first game. The wheels kind of came off when Zach Strief got hurt, and we were still dealing with the whole Adrian Peterson issue. So I think that played into that too. I don't know how we would. I'm curious to see how we would handle a Minnesota game. I would like to go against Minnesota defense. I'd like to have all hands on deck because I think you need it. As far as Philadelphia doesn't frighten me. I think we can handle Philadelphia. That's not to say they're not talented. They are very talented, but I think we can match them for what they like to do. People don't remember because, of course, he was in San Diego at the time. But Drew Brees did get handled in the playoffs by the Jets of all people. He was shut out. I think it was 40-0. The Jets, and that was Chad Pennington was the quarterback of the Jets back then, and Drew Brees got beat in the playoffs. So it does take some time to go in there and learn how to win at that level. We'll see. Okay, we're way over time, Sean. You have any last words for the evening?
Die, Falcons, die. Is that good? Well, my buddy Josh, I love you. You're like a member of the family to me and to us. Alan's, we'll give you one more opportunity. Tell everyone how they can follow you in your work.
Yeah, so Twitter's just at Draft Blackboard, and hopefully around the draft I'll be able to do a little bit more stuff. I like to kind of throw some scouting reports out there. Really have a fun time doing that. So love the draft process and leading up to it. So I'll try to do some stuff then. So hopefully get some good material out there.
Get my son to follow.
Feel any better? As per your comment just moments ago, I still try to take every opportunity humanly exposed to me to make fun of Matt Ryan. I really do. I feel like that's my calling in life. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, and especially thank my man Josh Schultz for joining us. We can't do this without you guys. I want to I told everyone on the live chat a few moments ago, without you guys, there's no us. And we thank you so much for your support. That we're closing out on, we're getting ready to close out on 2 seasons of the most incredible ride that I can possibly imagine having gone on. thank you guys so much for the overwhelming support that you've thrown our way. Josh, thank you, brother. Can't wait till we do it again.
Appreciate it.
Yep,
Thanks for
2 weeks.
Really good time
2
to
weeks.
connect with you guys, and of course, go Falcons. And hope to have a good Tuesday. And hope everybody stays healthy, and I hope we both make the playoffs. Honestly.
Yeah, that'll be interesting because I got some revenge from 1991 to get to take care of from if we meet in the playoffs. So I carry old scars. All right, guys, thank you guys, and thank Josh again for being on the show, and thank you for sticking with us as we ramble through an extra half hour. And we'll see you next time. We have a 10-day break after Thursday night, so keep that in mind. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome.